should have never brought Caroline into my house. She was an antique, her porcelain head cracked but eerily lifelike, her glass eyes too deep, too knowing. I found her in an old thrift store in Massachusetts, buried under a pile of forgotten relics. The owner, an old woman with sunken eyes, hesitated before selling her to me. "Strange things happen around that doll," she warned. I laughed it off. I wish I hadn't. The first night, I woke up drenched in sweat. My room was cold. Too cold. A whisper slithered through the silence, a voice so soft I couldn't understand the words. My heart pounded. I turned on the light. Caroline was still on, the shelf where I left her, but something felt wrong. Her head was tilted slightly, as if she had been watching me sleep. By the third night, the activity escalated. Shadows flickered in the corners of my vision. My bedroom door creaked open by itself. Windows slammed shut without warning. The whispers grew louder, closer. One night, as I lay frozen in bed, I finally understood the words. "You can't hide from us?" I couldn't stay in the same room with her anymore. I locked her in a wooden box and shoved it into the basement. That night, the noises became unbearable. Knocking from inside the walls, a child's laughter echoing from the basement. Then the scratching started, slow at first, then frenzied. The smell of something rotting filled the air. I called a paranormal investigator, desperate for answers. He barely stepped into the house before he turned pale. "There are 3 entities attached to this doll," he said, voice tight with fear. "They're not just haunting it. They're using it." He advised me to get rid of her immediately, but deep down, I knew it wouldn't be that easy. I drove miles out of town and buried Caroline in the middle of a desolate field. I stood there for a long time, making sure the soil swallowed her completely. That night, for the first time in weeks, my house was silent. No whispers, no shadows, no scratching. I let myself believe it was over. The next morning, I woke up to the familiar chill in the air. My stomach dropped. With a sinking heart, I turned, my head toward the shelf. There she was, Caroline, sitting in the exact same place as before. But this time, her lips were parted, as if she were about to speak. I couldn't breathe. My body refused to move as I stared at Caroline, sitting on my shelf as if she had never left. Her porcelain lips, slightly parted, sent a wave of dread through me. Then, a whisper slithered through the room, unmistakable this time. "You thought you could get rid of us." Panic surged through me. I grabbed Caroline and ran outside, desperate for a solution. Fire hadn't worked. Burying her hadn't worked. I needed help, real help. I drove straight to a local priest, thrusting the doll into his hands. The moment he touched her, the air around us turned ice cold. He shuddered. "This is not just a haunted object," he muttered. "It's a vessel." The exorcism took hours. The priest chanted, sprinkled holy water, and pressed a crucifix against the doll. Caroline's porcelain face darkened, cracks spreading like veins. The room shook. Shadows twisted in the corners. Then, a piercing scream filled the air. 3 voices in unison. And just like that, the house fell silent. The doll was nothing more than a broken shell. I had it locked away in a church vault, never to be touched again. I moved to another city, changed my number, and did everything to forget. But some nights, When the air turns unnaturally cold, I swear I still hear it. The yar, faintest whisper in the dark. You can't hide forever.
I should have never taken Amelia home. She was a vintage doll, her cloth body worn, her porcelain face cracked in places. I found her at an estate sale in New Orleans, hidden inside an old wooden trunk. The seller seemed relieved to be rid of her. "She belonged to my great-aunt," he said, avoiding my gaze. She always claimed Amelia was special. Something in his voice unsettled me, but I brushed it off. The first night, I placed Amelia on a chair in the corner of my bedroom. At exactly 3 a.m., I woke up to the sound of soft humming. My breath caught in my throat. The room was dark, but the tune was unmistakable. A child's lullaby, distant but growing closer. My heart pounded as I reached for my phone's flashlight. When I aimed it at the chair, my blood ran cold. Amelia was no longer sitting. She was on the floor closer to my bed. Over the next few nights, things got worse. Doors creaked open by themselves. Footsteps echoed in the hallway when no one was there. My bedroom mirror fogged up, and on the glass, tiny handprints appeared. But the worst was the whispering. At first, it was just soft murmurs in the distance. Then, one night, as I lay frozen in bed, I heard it clearly. "Come play with me." I tried locking Amelia in a cabinet, but it didn't help. That night, my closet door slammed open, and inside, the doll sat on the highest shelf, her head tilted as if mocking me. Shadows moved unnaturally in the corners of my room. I barely slept, afraid of what would happen if I closed my eyes. Desperate, I contacted a local paranormal expert. He arrived the next day and took one look at Amelia before stepping back. "This doll isn't just haunted," he said. "She's cursed." He explained that Amelia carried the spirit of a child who had died tragically, and something else, something darker, attached to her over time. "You need to get rid of her, but not just anywhere," he warned. "She has to be sealed properly or she will return." Following his instructions, I took Amelia to a sacred burial ground, where the doll was wrapped in blessed cloth and placed inside an iron box. We buried her deep beneath the earth. That night, my house was eerily quiet for the first time in weeks. No whispers, no footsteps, no laughter. I thought it was over until 3 nights later. As I walked into my bedroom, a chill ran down my spine. Sitting on the chair in the corner, right where I had placed her that first night, was Amelia. Her porcelain face was cracked a little more than before, and this time she was grinning. Terror gripped me as I stared at Amelia. Her cracked porcelain face twisted into a sinister grin. My mind raced. How had she returned? I had buried her in sacred ground. The room grew icy and a whisper echoed through the darkness. "You can't leave me." I refused to let fear paralyze me. Grabbing Amelia, I wrapped her in a thick cloth and drove straight to the paranormal expert who had helped me before. The moment he saw her, his face darkened. "She's stronger than I thought," he muttered. "This isn't just a spirit. It's something far worse." He explained that the burial had only delayed her return. She needed to be destroyed in a way that severed her connection to our world. Following his guidance, we performed an ancient ritual at a remote location. A circle of salt and symbols was drawn around the doll. Holy water was poured over her and the exorcism began. As the words of the ritual filled the air, Amelia trembled violently. Shadows twisted unnaturally around us. Then, a deafening scream erupted from the doll and the porcelain shattered into pieces, releasing a burst of cold air that sent us reeling. When the dust settled, the pieces of Emilia lay motionless on the ground. We gathered every shard and locked them in a blessed iron box, which was then buried in consecrated ground, never to be disturbed again. That night I finally slept peacefully. No whispers, no footsteps, no eerie laughter. Emilia was gone. But sometimes late at night I still wake up with the feeling that something is watching me. I tell myself it's just paranoia. At least, I hope it is.
I never believed in haunted dolls. Spirits were supposed to latch onto antique, eerie-looking ones. Porcelain dolls, ragged stuffed toys. Not a Barbie. But that was before I found her. It was at a thrift store, mixed in with a pile of forgotten toys. She was an old Barbie, her pink dress faded, her blonde hair stiff and tangled. There was something unsettling about her eyes. Too glossy, too alive. The cashier hesitated when she saw me holding it. "Are you sure you want that one?" she asked. I laughed it off. It was just a doll. I wish I had listened. That night, I placed the Barbie on my desk and went to bed. At around 2:30 a.m., I woke up feeling watched. The room was silent, but something was wrong. I turned on my bedside lamp, my eyes immediately locking onto the Barbie. I could swear I had left her facing forward, but now she was turned toward me. Over the next few days, things got worse. I would find the Barbie in different positions, her arms lifted, her head tilted unnaturally to the side. Then, the whispering started. At first it was faint, like the rustling of leaves. But one night, as I lay frozen in bed, I heard it clearly. "Let's play." I threw her in the trash. But when I woke up, she was back on my desk, her head completely turned around. My hands shook as I grabbed her and tried breaking her plastic body. The moment I did, the lights flickered, and a sharp giggle echoed through my room. Shadows stretched unnaturally across the walls. My closet door creaked open by itself. I ran. Desperate, I contacted a paranormal expert online. He told me this wasn't just a haunted object. It was a conduit for something sinister. "You need to burn it," he said, "but you have to do it right. If not, she'll come back." That night, I built a fire in my backyard. As soon as the flames touched the Barbie, she let out an inhuman screech. The plastic melted, twisting into grotesque shapes. Dark smoke rose into the night sky, and for a brief moment, I saw a face in the flames, grinning. Then, silence. I buried the melted remains deep in the ground. I thought it was over. After burning and burying the Barbie, my house remained silent for weeks. No more whispering, no more shifting shadows. I finally felt safe. Then, one night, as I was about to sleep, my phone screen flickered. At first I thought it was just a glitch, but then a message appeared, one I hadn't typed. It read, "You can't get rid of me." My blood ran cold. Before I could react, my closet door creaked open by itself. And there, lying in the darkness, was the Barbie, half melted, her grin twisted into something monstrous. Panic took over. I grabbed the doll and rushed outside. The paranormal expert had warned me. If the spirit wasn't fully exorcised, it would always find a way back. I needed something stronger. I drove to a remote lake known for its ancient sacred waters. With trembling hands, I tied the melted doll to a heavy rock, whispered a final prayer, and threw it into the depths. As soon as the Barbie hit the water, an unnatural wail echoed through the trees. The lake rippled violently, then stilled. A heavy silence followed. I stood there for what felt like hours, waiting, watching. But she didn't return. That was months ago. My house remains peaceful. No strange noises, no eerie messages. But sometimes when I pass by a toy aisle or see a doll in a store window, I feel a familiar chill. And I wonder, did she really disappear? Or is she just waiting for someone else?
I found the doll at a yard sale in a quiet neighborhood in Salem, Massachusetts. She was old, made entirely of fabric, with button eyes and stitched lips. The woman selling her looked relieved when I picked it up. "Take it," she said quickly, refusing my money. "Just don't bring it back." I should have left it there. That night I placed the doll on a chair in the corner of my bedroom. At around 3 a.m., I woke up to a strange rustling sound. My heart pounded as I sat up and turned on the light. The doll had fallen off the chair. At least that's what I told myself. I placed her back and went to sleep. The next night, I woke up again, this time to a faint giggle. My room was completely dark, except for the streetlight casting shadows through the window. My eyes adjusted and I froze. The doll was no longer on the chair. She was sitting upright on my bed, inches from my feet. I barely slept after that. Every night I would find her in a new position, sometimes standing against the wall, other times with her head tilted unnaturally. I tried locking her in my closet, but in the morning, she would be back in the chair, her button eyes staring right at me. The whispers grew louder. My lights flickered. And then, one night, I woke up to the sensation of tiny hands pressing down on my chest. That was enough. I called a paranormal investigator, desperate for answers. The moment he saw the doll, his face darkened. "This isn't just a haunted object," he said. "It's a vessel. Something is inside it." He instructed me to take the doll far away and bury it deep in the ground, somewhere it could never be disturbed. I drove miles out of town to an abandoned field. With shaking hands, I dug a hole, threw the doll inside, and covered it with dirt. The moment I finished, a strong gust of wind blew past me, carrying a whisper so soft I almost missed it. "See you soon." I left that night, never looking back. My house is quiet now. The nightmares have stopped. But sometimes, when I pass by an empty lot or a patch of woods, I swear I see something. A glimpse of faded fabric, two dark button eyes watching from the shadows.
If you enjoyed these real horror stories and want more chilling tales, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. It helps us keep bringing you the scariest stories from around the world. And if you've ever had a terrifying experience, share it in the comments. We'd love to hear it if you dare.